Lable Braun describes himself as an enigma. He's actually quite a philosopher and thinker, and one of the people who has been questioning the nature of life for a very long time. As an expert certified project manager and a very sharp person in his corporate life, he's been called on to be a kind of shaman inside corporations. Have I got a good description of you, Lable?
As good as it gets, Phyllis. Thank you.
But let's talk about this idea of being a philosopher. What brings you to philosophy? What is it that ignites your soul about philosophy?
The essence of what brings me to philosophy is that we think we have modern problems that need to be solved in modern ways. The really interesting thing is that there's no problem today that wasn't discussed at least 2,500 years ago. And the answers lie along the path of how people have thought about these problems. But in our modern way, we tend to say, that's not germane anymore. And I'm not interested in that. I want to solve them in new ways. And that's why we miss the boat so often.
One of the things that I find interesting about you is your discussion about who you are and how you became who you are. You have had a very successful corporate life, but you've chosen a different path, and you've chosen a path that you've been pulled on by your thinking, your writing, your reading.
Being in the corporate world, I saw the issues of leadership being dealt with, and people wondering how to become leaders. And it's very, very simple. I mean, if I ask most people what makes a leader, they would tell me a whole bunch of characteristics. There's only one thing that makes a leader: followers. Now, how do you get followers? The problem is that we have some myths about leadership. One of the myths is that leaders accomplish things. We may say things like, Napoleon conquered, all of Europe. Well, Napoleon didn't conquer all of Europe. If he was standing out there by himself in front of the Prussian army, I don't care how good a soldier he was, we know what would have happened. Napoleon influenced others. How do you influence others? You influence others not by selling them your vision, as most of our political and corporate leaders try to do, but by giving people a different vision of themselves, of what they could be. There are two tools that leaders use, true leaders use, to do this. One is intimacy, understanding the people that you want to follow you and believing in them. Napoleon understood this before he went off to lead an army to conquer Europe. He said, every one of my foot soldiers carries a marshal's baton in his knapsack. He understood how to give them a bigger vision of themselves. The other thing you need is communication. You've got to be able to communicate this vision. And there's always been this tension, though, between intimacy and communication. The more intimate I can be with someone, the fewer people I can communicate with. The more broadly I communicate, the fewer people I can be intimate with. And for the greatest part of human history, the accent was on the intimacy. And you influenced those around you who might have influenced others who might have influenced others. And started to come into balance, and then something dramatic happened. We had the printing press. And communication became so much more important, so much more important. And ever since that particular event, communication has become more and more the tool of choice for leadership, and intimacy has fallen by the wayside. To the point now where to become a leader, what do people do? They try to buy communications. The more TV commercials I get, the more ways I can get my name out there. That's how I become a leader. How do I become a leader in the corporate world? Send out a whole bunch of emails. Send out, have a global meeting or whatever, where the communication has become the key element. Now, I had thought that had reached its peak when I would see people emailing each other across a cubicle wall. Here's one person sat in the cubicle, the other person sat in the cubicle, they shared a wall, and they would email each other. And then along came instant messaging. Now they would IM each other in real time instead of just having a conversation. And I thought, now we've reached the ultimate of where communication is up here and intimacy is down here. And then along came the social networks. And that is truly wiping out intimacy. That is truly, communication is now king. The politicians, the CEOs, they're all getting on the social networks. And I said to myself, is it possible that we can ever bring the scales back to intimacy?
I'm going to let the audience have at you. That's exquisite, Lable. Thank you.